Bill Nelson was a happy man as he drove home early from a business meeting. He had just closed a great deal for his company. His commission on this one deal would put him far ahead for the Salesman of the Year title. That would give him a great bonus, and his commission alone would be well into the upper six-figure bracket. Everyone Bill did business with smiled when he entered their office. He was always bright, pleasant, and cheerful. He always had a new little joke to tell, and he brightened their day. He was known to be completely honest in all his dealing with everyone. He refused to sell any of his customers' equipment that he knew would not be profitable for them. He was completely familiar with his company's products and with the equipment that his competitors sold. At 35, Bill was an average man in every way. He was in excellent condition and ran a couple of miles every other day. His brown hair and hazel eyes set off his pleasant face. He was rarely without a cheery smile on his face. Part of the reason for his smile was his wife Annie. She was the light of his life. Bill adored Annie and their two children, Sally and John. Annie was a small woman just a hair over 5 feet tall and weighing just over 100 pounds. Her body was easy to look at with a slim waist and a full 32D bust. She looked like the very, very pretty girl next door. Her blonde hair was usually in a long ponytail that flipped about as she moved. Annie showed no signs of motherhood and looked much younger than her 33 years. Annie loved to tease Bill by dressing in revealing clothes around the house. Their personal life was fantastic, having it 5 or 6 nights a week and often more than once a day. They had met in college and dated during his sophomore and junior years. She was studying nursing while Bill studied business administration. They were a couple almost as soon as they met, and they shared an efficiency apartment for the next 2 years. Bill was enlisted in the Army. After he finished his training, he was sent to Saudi Arabia for more training with his unit. He was in an armored troop carrier during the attack into Iraq. On the 3rd day of the attack, his unit was well into Iraq when his troop carrier was hit by RPG. He woke up in a C-5 aircraft medevac en route to the U.S. Army Hospital in Ramstein, Germany. His numerous wounds were further stabilized there, and he was sent home to Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C. for further surgeries. Bill was having his usual dream about Annie, but this one was clearer and sharper. He even heard her calling his name and smelled her favorite perfume. He opened his eyes and saw her worried face in front of him. She suddenly smiled and gently pressed her lips to his. Wow, he could feel her kiss this time. He whispered, "Annie, is it really you? You look real." "Oh, Billy, yes, I am really here. I have been here for over a month. I am so happy that they finally let you wake up. How do you feel? A month? I feel kind of tired, but I am real happy to see you." "Where are we?" "Billy, honey, can you see me all right? Is your vision clear?" "Sure. I see you as clear as a bell. You are beautiful. I love you." "Oh, Billy, I love you too." "They were worried about your eyesight. How do you feel?" "I don't seem to hurt anywhere. I know I was wounded and sent home." "How bad is it? Am I going to be okay?" "Annie, give it to me straight. Am I going to be able to be a man for you?" Annie looked him in the eye. "Yes, dear," she giggled, "and I know you are fine down there. I have given you sponge baths and played with you, and you respond to all kinds. You work perfectly." She blushed. She was serious again. "Bill, you had 47 wounds, some minor, some serious. As best they can tell, when the grenade hit, small fragments of steel sprayed inside the troop carrier and bounced all around the inside. You have wounds entering from many directions. Some went all the way through, a lot stayed inside you. Most of the wounds have been repaired. Some have not." Billy watched a tear roll down each of her lovely cheeks. She steeled herself. "Billy, you are going to have several more operations before you can be released from the hospital. I promise I will be here with you for all of them. I have moved here and am staying with my Aunt Jane, who lives in Maryland a few miles from here. Because I am a registered nurse, they let me help take care of you. Both our families send me money to help with my expenses." Bill tried to tell her how much he loved her, but her soft lips pressing against his stopped him. In a month they were married in the hospital chapel, surrounded by both families and a few friends. 6 months after the wedding they were home and moved into a small apartment. Bill adored his wife. He felt he owed her his very life. She had stuck with him and comforted him on his blackest days when he thought he would never leave the hospital. She was with him and coached him through his rehabilitation. She was a loving slave driver who insisted he could always do a few more repetitions of every exercise. She was a perfect wife. She was always happy and full of life. She kept an immaculate home, was a super good cook, and was an eager and ardent lover. She arranged her work so they could spend the most time together. Bill started with a new company in sales as the junior salesperson. He worked hard and studied his company's products as well as the products of his competitors. He was very diligent and followed up on every lead that came his way. He spent a lot of time in the factory test spaces watching the engineers put their products through their paces. Then he visited the places that used his company's tools and machines. He asked how the machines performed and how they could be improved. He visited shops that used his company's competitors' machines and asked why they thought the competitors' equipment was better. The information he gathered he reported back to his company. Some of his suggestions earned him bonuses and his attitude earned the respect of all that knew him. Annie and Bill saved toward the things they wanted. They lived frugally and rarely ate out. As his skills as a salesman improved and his income grew, they were able to purchase their first small house. The two of them set goals and a timetable for the completion of those goals. Bill loved to fish but rarely managed to get away to do it. Annie attended a women's club meeting the second Wednesday of each month. They worked together on home improvement projects instead of going to movies and activities that used money they felt was more prudent to use to improve their home. They each monitored the clothing of their spouse and carefully ensured the other maintained an attractive appearance. Bill loved it when Annie looked her best. Since Annie wore scrubs at work, most of her clothing money was spent on leisure clothes. She did manage to afford some new clothing each month. 2 years into the marriage, things were a little bit ahead of the plan, so they jointly decided to start their family. Within a month of going off the pill, Annie happily reported she was pregnant. Because of the excellent benefits they both had in their jobs, the out-of-pocket expenses were less than projected. Bill got busy in their little workshop and turned out a very professional-looking crib and all the other baby furniture Anne requested. Annie painted everything with a primer coat of paint until they discovered the child was a boy. Then they painted everything a light blue. Annie had an easy pregnancy and baby John was a good baby. They both adored him and were tickled to death when she became pregnant a year and a half later. Sally was a sweet little doll. She was as good a baby as John, and was adored too. Bill continued to advance through the company. When Sally was born, he was in the top 10 salespeople in the company. 2 years later, the market was right and they sold the house they had worked on so hard. They sold it for 3 times what they paid for it. They bought another house that was in a much nicer area and was much larger. The lot was huge, but the landscaping in the house were not in the best condition. A year later, after a huge expenditure of labor and a small amount of cash, it was the showpiece of the neighborhood. Bill was the top salesman in the company. His years of hard work paid off again. His client list was very large and he added new customers every day when new people would call and request him by name, saying they had met him somewhere or that he had been recommended by a happy customer. Everyone that knew them thought they were the perfect couple. It was evident that they loved each other deeply. Bill was able to cut back on the amount of time he spent on the road. The account he had just signed with the U.S. Department of Defense was huge. He wanted to celebrate with Annie quietly that evening. He smiled as he thought of his wife. Under her clothes and her shy, demure manner, she was a tiger. They had what almost every day, but it was not unusual for them to make love more than once a day on weekends. He grinned and decided to stop and pick up a good bottle of champagne on the way home. He was coming out of the liquor store when he froze in mid-step. Standing in the doorway of a motel next door was his wife Annie. She was kissing a huge man who was gripping her figure under her skirt. Bill dropped the champagne bottle. Annie turned and looked right at Bill. She didn't move for a minute, then she ran for her car. Bill watched as she sped away. He looked back and the door to the motel room was shutting. Bill sat in his car and thought over what he had just seen. He tried to think of a reasonable explanation for what he had just seen. It had definitely appeared to be an embrace and kiss. He was in shock. He had no idea of how long he sat there in a daze. There was no smile on his face now. He started his car and drove slowly home. Annie's car was in the drive. The driver's door was open. He walked into the house. He got a beer from the refrigerator and put it on the kitchen counter, then went to the spare bedroom and got several pieces of luggage from the closet and carried them to the living room. He heard a noise behind him and turned to see Annie, staring wide-eyed, her hands over her mouth. He looked sadly at his wife. "I figure one of us is going to need these. Right?" Annie turned and ran down the hall toward the master bedroom. He heard a muffled sob as he carried the bags into the room. Annie lay on the bed, her face buried in her pillow, her shoulders heaving with each muffled sob. Bill put the bags down. He leaned against the wall. She heard his sad voice. "I'll hand it to you, girl. You really had me fooled. I never suspected a thing. I have been so proud of our perfect marriage. I guess they are right when they say the stupid husband is always the last to know. I'll be out of your way in a little bit." Annie sat up quickly. "No. No. Please don't leave me. I love you. I love you with all my heart. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. You are my whole life. I can't live without you. Annie, I have to get out of here. I need some time to think. I just learned you are cheating on me. I have no clue about what is going on. I don't know why, how long, or if you really ever loved me when you stopped loving me. I don't know anything. I'll call you when I think we can talk. No, please don't go. Stay with me. I need you. You are my life. Please stay and talk to me now. I'll tell you everything. You need to know things before you make any decisions. Please don't go. I love you. I have always loved you. Okay. I'll listen to you for a few minutes. Okay. I don't know what you can tell me that will change my mind. Let's go sit in the den. Where are the kids? Oh, thank you for talking to me. The kids are with my mom and dad for the weekend." Tears still ran from Annie's eyes. They sat and looked sadly at each other. Annie sobbed, "I never meant to hurt you in any way. I don't know how to start, but please believe that I do love you. I love no other man. You are my man and always will be my only love." "Annie, what you are saying doesn't match with what I saw. I saw a fully loving kiss. His hands were caressing your bare figure and you were loving it. That is what I saw." "No, you were only partly right. You did see a kiss and caress, but there was no love involved, absolutely none on either part. I do not love him and he does not love me. It is pure, you know what, and only." Bill looked at her. "Okay, I might buy that, but why? We have this more than most people. I guess you were telling me that I don't satisfy you. I sure thought I did. Are you saying you faked all those? That I never made you to finish the race? No, no, you are wonderful. I have never faked with you. I don't have to fake when it's really wonderful. Billy, I have never refused any hint that you desired me. I don't believe I have ever turned you down." Bill smiled gently. "I never felt that you did. Shows how dumb I am, doesn't it? Are the kids mine? Oh my God. Yes, the kids are yours. Yes, yes, you are the father of our kids. There has only been one other man. How long has this been going on?" "Since high school. I dated him before I met you." "What? You have been screwing him all of our married life?" "Our whole marriage has been a sham. I have been a spectator all along?" "I don't know what that is. But it hasn't been all the time. I don't know how to explain this. He was the first man I ever had relationships with. He is much bigger than any man I have ever had. With him it was different. I never loved him. Oh, he is nice enough, but there is no love involved. No real emotion, no feelings of a need to be with him other than for the you-know-what. Then I met you, Billy. You turned me on in every way. I couldn't get enough of you. You satisfied all of my needs and fulfilled my desires. Then why are you still going with him now?" "Billy, I wish I had an easy answer for that, but I don't. All I can tell you is that I had not been with him for months when I heard you were wounded. I was still in total shock when we met accidentally in a grocery store. We went to a bar and had a drink and I ended up drunk and woke up in his bed in the morning. We had something and he took you off of my mind for a little while. He knows how much I love you. He loves his wife too, but he says I am the best he has ever had. We do not have a regular schedule or anything. It is always more than a month apart. Sometime 3 or 4 months go by. Then the urge builds up and I need to see him. Honey, please believe me, it is not a fault of yours. It is completely my fault. I don't know why I get that way. It is a sickness inside me. I want to die for the hurt I caused you. I guess that would be the best thing that can happen." Billy looked at her. He could tell she was in agony. Abject terror was written on her face. He couldn't help it. He took her in his arms and held her tightly to his chest. She looked up at him. She sobbed, "I do love you, Billy. What can we do? How can I fix this mess I have made of our lives? I will do anything, anything at all to save our marriage. I am not thinking of myself here. I am thinking of the kids. They need both of us for the next few years. Then I will give you everything and release you from our marriage. What do you want now? An open marriage so you can continue to see him whenever you want?" "No, that is not what I want. I just want you. If you want to date other women, I guess that would only be fair to you after the way I have behaved. Annie, I still love you, I always will. Can I ever trust you again? Can I forgive you? I don't know. I still have a need to think this over. I have to consider what is best for the kids. I am not sure about my own feelings right now. I want to hurt you both, to smash something, break something. I think I need to leave for a while until I get better control of my feelings. Sob. I don't want you to leave, I'll be a wreck before the kids get back. Please stay a while longer. Please. Okay. I'll stay if you answer some more questions for me. I'll answer any questions you have. I want no more secrets between us. How many times did you know what out of you? Never. I could never do that to you. Never. I always showered before you came home. Always. I was always fresh. Tears ran down Annie's cheeks. Bill looked at her closely. If I took you now, would you be? She looked down and softly murmured something. I couldn't hear you. What did you say? I said, no, I will not go with you now. Why not? You know why, right? Did you ever was with him on our special days, anniversaries, birthdays or such? No, never. You did was with him while I was in the hospital, didn't you? No, it was before you were home. I was not with him again for several more years. He lost interest in you? No, he called but I refused to meet him. Then after 3 years he called week after week, and then he called for about 5 days in a row. Then I gave in. I don't know why. I guess I am not enough of a man to satisfy you. Oh, Billy, it wasn't that. I don't know what it was, but he isn't better than you, not in any way. He never was to me the way you always do. He never once made me feel as good as you do. Half the time it would hurt. He would forget about it. If he calls again tomorrow, can you be sure you will not go running to him? Yes, I will never go again. He will never call again either. I called him as soon as I got home. I told him if he called again I would tell his wife just before I shot him. He knows I will do it too. I know he has to be scared to death one of us will call his wife and tell her. Make sure to like this video if you want the next part of the story.